North America, the continent that we all know and love, full of natural wonders like the Rocky Mountains, the Grand Canyon, and Ohio. But what if, in an alternate timeline, North America didn't exist? How would this alternate world be different from our own? Of course, North America is a huge chunk of land, and its absence would dramatically alter ocean currents, climates, and the subsequent course of history. For this scenario to work, let's assume none of this happens, and that the ocean currents of our own timeline magically move around an empty patch of water. The absence of North America would also mean that there are no horses, but I already covered that scenario in a different video. For now, let's assume that the absence of horses doesn't affect the course of Afro-Eurasian history. Now, let's discuss the most obvious impact: the changes to South America. We already can assume that the absence of North America means that there is no human migration into North America. Because of this, the migration of people from North America to South America seen in our own timeline also doesn't occur. As such, we can also assume that pre-Columbian South American civilization does not exist, or at least not as we know it. This would likely mean that South America becomes a haven for unique megafauna, protected from both human hunters and North American competitors. In a lot of ways, it would resemble Australia prior to its initial settlement, at least in terms of its fauna. Meanwhile, given our prior assumptions, Afro-Eurasian history is largely unaffected, at least up until 1492. For starters, without North America existing, Columbus's voyage would have instead sailed right through an empty stretch of ocean. Instead of reaching land in the Bahamas, Columbus and his crew would have fought in vain to cross the Pacific, with morale and supplies dwindling over time until its tragic ending. Just like my failing marriage, you might ask? Yes, Jimmy. Just like your marriage. Of course, with no North America to discover, there is no race to colonize either it or South America. While South America would likely be discovered eventually, this discovery occurs far later than in our own timeline. The implications of this are massive. For instance, without the existence of North America and the discovery of South America, there is no Treaty of Tordesillas to allocate these to Spain. This means that Spain and Portugal would most likely compete over goods and trade routes across the Atlantic and Indian Oceans, which were allocated to Portugal in our own timeline. The broader ramifications of this are entirely unclear. Would the absence of Pacific trade routes slow the decline of the Ottomans? Would the routes around Africa have the same impact? Would Western European nations not become colonial powers? Or would we still see parallels to the mercantilist systems of our own timeline? What about Ireland? Without the discovery of the Americas, potatoes are never brought to Ireland. What would that entail? These are just a few of several questions that this scenario poses, and there is no true way to know the answers. However, the purpose of this video is not to declare precisely what would have happened here, but rather to show how small changes in history can have massive ramifications. Until next time, this is Cody of Alternate History Hub.